Welcome, scholars. Today, we are tackling an absolute bedrock of the Cambridge Accounting 9706 syllabus. We're diving deep into the depreciation of non-current assets, specifically focusing on the reducing balance method. Now, listen, this isn't just about crunching a few percentages against a net book value and calling it a day. If you want those top-tier marks, it's about proving to the examiner that you truly understand the financial narrative behind every single one of those numbers. We're going to completely deconstruct this topic, look through the examiner's lens, and show you exactly what the elite marking teams actually want to see on your paper.
I want you to really absorb this direct quote straight from the principal examiner reports. They state, "The classic mistake is providing generic answers not specific to the question context. Year after year, examiners write this exact same complaint. To avoid falling into this massive trap, you absolutely must understand the anatomy of the command words sitting right there in front of you. When a high-stakes 9 to 15 mark question asks you to analyze versus evaluate, it is literally setting a trap for the unprepared candidate. Think about it. Analyze means you are breaking down the reducing balance method. You're showing how the depreciation charge decreases over the useful life of the asset. That's great, but what about evaluate? That command word requires judgment. It requires you to weigh the reducing balance method against, say, the straight line method and justify your choice based entirely on that specific asset's pattern of economic benefit. You have to isolate that command word, pinpoint the exact content knowledge required, and strictly obey the hidden constraints of the scenario.
Here is our strategic roadmap for this masterclass. We'll start with the theoretical foundations, move into the technical methodology, tackle roadblocks in the method mark strategy, dive into a pause and practice workshop, and wrap up with the top examiner warnings.
Let's kick things off with Part 1, Theoretical Foundations.
The absolute best, top-performing candidates, they don't just memorize formulas. They build a rock-solid conceptual framework. You see, the theoretical architecture of the reducing balance method rests heavily on precise causal relationships. Think about this logically. Why does the depreciation charge fall each year? Well, because the asset's repair and maintenance costs are highly likely to increase over time as it gets older. So by using the reducing balance method, you balance out the total annual charge hitting the income statement. High depreciation and low maintenance early on, followed by low depreciation and high maintenance later. That right there is a causal relationship. Furthermore, Cambridge's assessment framework heavily prioritizes analytical depth over superficial breadth. They want to see integration. If you can explain how this depreciation method affects the prudence concept, or how it perfectly illustrates the matching principle, you are showing the examiner that you see the whole board. Referencing those cross-topic connections is exactly how you separate yourself from the pack and achieve significantly higher marks.
Moving right along to Part 2, Technical Methodology.
Okay, I want to take you inside a recent session in our digital study suite with two of my top scholars, Alex and Sam. They were aggressively debating how to tackle a massive past paper question using this exact 5-step procedural sequence. Alex, who is incredibly technical, wanted to immediately jump to step 3. He just wanted to aggressively execute the math, crunch the numbers, and get to a final figure. But Sam pushed back, and Sam was completely right. Sam argued that a common, devastating mistake is executing the math without properly identifying the context in step 1. Before you even touch your calculator to execute those numbers, you have to extract the data and select your analytical framework. You need to stop and ask yourself, is the asset in this scenario a heavy factory machine, or is it an office building? Does the text explicitly state it's a delivery vehicle that loses value incredibly fast in its first few years? That context completely changes how you will explain your calculations later on. Alex eventually realized that extracting the right context first is what actually dictates whether you get full marks, not just getting the math right.
During that same study session, we talked about how to unlock those top-tier marking bands. You have to actively shift your brain from AO1 knowledge to AO3 evaluation. Look at this progression. Descriptive answers are where the vast majority of students stop. They just state the steps and present a mathematical calculation. It's safe, but it doesn't score high. Analytical answers go a step further. They interpret the mathematical relationships. But if you want to hit that elite, evaluative tier, you absolutely must justify your decisions with hard evidence. Don't just describe the numbers to the examiner. They already know what the numbers are. You must evaluate. For instance, evaluate if a 20% depreciation rate is actually appropriate given the business's current liquidity issues, and justify your stance using the exact figures you just calculated. That is how you prove mastery.
Let's jump into Part 3, Roadblocks and the Method Mark Strategy.
Now, right before we look at the ultimate strategy to break through these roadblocks, take a quick mental pause. Mastering these high-level Cambridge techniques requires tuning out the noise and really dialing into the examiner's mindset.
If you want to consistently crush your exams, make sure you hit subscribe to Ace the Exam's IGCSE, O, and A levels right now at acetheexam_IGCSE. Turn on all notifications so you literally never miss our weekly Cambridge Breakthrough strategies. All right, let's get back into exactly why students get stuck.
So, why is it that students find evaluating evidence and drawing conclusions so incredibly hard? When Alex and Sam hit a wall in their practice essay, it was because of a massive cognitive disconnect that happens in the exam hall. Your brain has to violently shift gears. You go from the rigid, black-and-white mathematical certainty of calculating depreciation straight into the subjective, highly nuanced task of written evaluation. It's like using two completely different parts of your brain. Because of this, students often write completely disconnected paragraphs. They will calculate the schedules perfectly, flawlessly even, but then their written evaluation reads like a generic, copied and pasted textbook definition. They completely fail to link the hard data they just generated back to their final conclusion.
The ultimate solution to this cognitive disconnect is what we call the method mark strategy. Remember, marks are awarded for clear notation and the analytical process, not just for getting the final figure right. You have to fiercely utilize the own figure rule. Point directly to your calculation process. If you clearly show how you derive the depreciation charge, step by step, you secure those method marks even if your final addition was off by $1. Then, to fix the writing part, use the paragraph balance formula. It works like this. State your point, back it up with a specific figure from your calculations, and then immediately link it back to the scenario's constraints. For example, don't just say reducing balance is good. Say, the business should maintain this method because the year one depreciation charge of $15,000 perfectly matches the asset's peak maintenance efficiency period. Boom. By doing exactly that, Alex and Sam instantly transitioned their disjointed draft into a flawless, full-mark response.
Welcome to Part 4, our Pause and Practice workshop. It's time to test your real-time data interpretation.
Picture this. You open your exam paper, and you are faced with a complex schedule of non-current assets and a massive paragraph of dense stimulus text. What do? You initiate a mental 60-second three-step scan. Step 1. Immediately identify the dates. When exactly was the asset purchased? Are we dealing with part-year depreciation? Examiners love hiding a mid-year purchase to ruin your math. Step 2. Identify the precise method and the rate. Step 3. Hunt for anomalies. Did they sell an asset mid-year? You need to extract the relevant text in tables and mentally interpret those relationships before the ticking clock forces you to just start blindly writing.
Now let's break down how to actually execute comparative analysis. True comparison requires identifying both similarities and differences, and you do this by using comparative connectives. Please, whatever you do, do not just write two separate, isolated paragraphs about two different methods. You need to build bridges between your thoughts. You need to use phrasing like, whereas the straight line method assumes an equal spread of economic benefit over time, the reducing balance method provides a more realistic matching of costs for this specific machinery because it reflects the higher early year efficiency. You see what we did there? We supported the comparison with evidence from the data, drawing a definitive, unified conclusion about relative importance.
All right, let's play Spot the Flaw. Imagine reading this poorly written student answer. The business should use a reducing balance because it's better for vehicles and saves tax. Wow. Okay, what are the missing justifications there? What are the massive unchecked assumptions? First of all, they assumed better is a valid accounting term. I promise you, it isn't. Better in what way? More prudent? More accurate for matching? Second, they brought in the concept of tax. Now, tax might not have even been mentioned a single time in the stimulus material. You can't just invent variables. True evaluative thinking requires you to actively question assumptions, consider different analytical perspectives, and rigorously, systematically justify every single decision with the actual numerical evidence you calculated.
Finally, Part 5, Top Examiner Warnings. Let's look closely at the 3 most devastating mistakes reported directly by Cambridge examiners.
Mistake number 1, formatting. It sounds basic, but examiners report that students frequently forget proper formatting in their depreciation accounts and in their extracts from financial statements. We are talking about using correct dates, providing accurate narrative descriptions in ledger accounts, for example, actually writing out income statement instead of just scribbling P&L, and remembering to properly bring down the balances. Do not bleed incredibly easy marks just because you are rushing the presentation of your data.
Mistake number 2, systematically forgetting to verify results. In the intense, high-stakes pressure of the exam hall, so many students will calculate a 20% reduction, write it down, and immediately sprint to the next question. You must pause and verify. Ask yourself, does the accumulated depreciation I just calculated somehow exceed the total cost of the asset? If so, you've made a fatal mathematical error. Did you actually apply the percentage to the net book value, or did you accidentally apply it to the original cost in year 2? Taking just 5 seconds to verify your workings completely protects your method marks.
And mistake number 3, generic answers. We talked about this at the start, and it remains the single biggest killer of A-star dreams. Students will write beautiful, grammatically perfect, textbook-level paragraphs about what the reducing balance method is, but they completely fail to link every single point specifically to the scenario's context. If the exam question is specifically about a fleet of delivery trucks facing severe cash flow problems, your answer better explicitly mention delivery trucks, rapid wear and tear, and exactly how the heavy depreciation charge in year 1 impacts those specific cash flow margins. Context is absolutely king.
So how do you lock in this systematic process when you are under severe exam conditions? You build a mnemonic using the first letters of our 5-step methodology: identify, apply, execute, verify, present. IAEVP. You could use something simple like intelligent accountants evaluate valid presentations. The very moment you sit down at your desk and see a complex depreciation question, I want you to write those 5 letters at the top margin of your page. It's a psychological anchor. It will instantly ground your thoughts, dictate your time allocation, and ensure you construct a rigorous, heavily contextualized answer.
So I want to leave you with this provocative final thought. How exactly will you apply the method mark strategy and this specific evaluative framework to the very next past paper you attempt? Because let's be honest, knowledge is only power when it is applied consistently. If you want to master these Cambridge strategies, hit the subscribe button right now at Ace the Exam IGCE, turn on that notification bell for our future exam hacks, and drop a comment below with your exact target grade. Now close this explainer, open up a fresh past paper, and go practice these exact techniques. Keep your standards high, and I'll see you in the next one.